new Quicksand and Failure records, new Geese and David Byrne shows, pregnant singer-songwriters, and more. I'm Dave, I'm here with Amanda, and you're listening to BV Weekly. Hey, Amanda.
Hey, Dave.
Andrew is still too busy taking care of his baby to be here, but make sure to stick around to the end of this podcast to hear Andrew, Bill, and I discuss two more classic 1996 records turning 30 this year. I won't reveal what they are. You got to listen to the end, find out. And otherwise, Bill is also not here today, but head over to our other podcast, BV Interviews, to hear him talk to filmmaker Chandler Levac about her new movie, Mile and Kicks, which is in theaters now. It's a movie based on the 2000s Montreal music scene with lots of BrooklynVegan friendly appearances. We've talked a lot about that movie already, and I still haven't seen it, but I would like to. Definitely super relevant to our interests.
Yeah, I got to see it.
But yeah, listen to that interview right now. BV Interviews. By the way, subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already, but also BV Interviews. And meanwhile, I'm kind of bummed. I haven't seen many shows lately.
Yeah, I know. Same. It's been a really busy week for me.
Yeah.
And I just making time to get to shows has become very difficult. What had you been hoping to see?
Completely spaced on seeing the Bel Air Lip Bombs, which has been in my calendar, it feels like, for 6 months. They played 2 New York City shows on this tour. I got really into that album last year, so then I was definitely like, oh, I'm going to see them. But then they didn't tour for so long. I guess they're from Australia. I don't know if that affected it, but
Yeah, I think the current situation with visas, everybody from overseas tours getting pushed back. Woo Life just had to reschedule their tour because of
that's a huge
visa
bummer.
issues. So it's really a bummer.
That really fits the Woo Life narrative, though.
It does.
They can't
Poor
just
Woo Life.
come back.
No, it has to be delayed more. But I mean, for me, there's one silver lining, and that's that by the time they do make it over here, maybe I will see them. Whereas if they had come when they were originally going to, I almost definitely wouldn't have made it. So
oh yeah, that works.
I gotta try.
I haven't looked at those dates yet, but I'm definitely wanting to see those. And yeah, so Bel Air Lip Bombs, they finally got here and I missed them. They played the small shows too.
Yeah.
I miscalculated. That album was super catchy. I thought they'd be playing way bigger shows, but then it was Nightclub 101, which is tiny, but they did play maybe Babies too.
I think both.
Yeah, they did 2 nights. I missed them both. I also missed the Touche Amore show. They did stage 4 at Brooklyn Monarch. I was really bummed.
I'm also bummed to have missed that one.
I was trying to decide between 3 shows that night. I went to none. The Swing Kids show was also that night. Big reunion, first New York City show ever, I think. And then, but the one that I was maybe actually going to go to was Waxahatchee MJ Lenderman, which, yeah, I didn't go to that either. And I didn't go to the Waxahatchee MJ show the very next night either. And
I am absolutely kicking myself for missing those also. I mean, on one hand, I'm well, I've seen both Waxahatchee and MJ Lenderman a bunch, so it's not like an artist I haven't seen before. But at the same time, they're just currently 2 of the greatest singer-songwriters we have going. And, how can you miss a chance to see them together? So
I know. For me, I do feel like I've gotten my MJ fill lately. I saw him at least twice on the last whatever cycle recently tours, but I haven't seen Waxahatchee for so long. So it's kind of my ongoing narrative that I keep saying, yep, I'm definitely going this time. And then I didn't go. And you know what? It might be a while now before we see her again. So even worse, because as she revealed on the first night of that tour, maybe visually, but also on mic, she is pregnant. Congratulations, Katie Crutchfield, aka Waxahatchee. And congratulations to Kevin Morby, the confirmed father, as tagged on Instagram.
Yes, so excited for both of them. That's so wonderful. Although I'm a little oh, that means we're not going to get Waxahatchee music for a bit. But obviously, no, very, very exciting.
And there's a new Kevin Morby album coming too.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, that's got to be tough. It means I assume he has tour dates around that, and then he'll have a newborn. So, or maybe he takes parental leave,
maybe
somebody
Andrew
we know.
Can fill him in when he's back on his experience with a newborn.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I actually did make it to one show last week, a show from another pregnant musician, in this case, Lala Lala. I really love her new album, Heaven 2, that came out this year. And she is actually calling this her pregnancy tour. And she asked if anyone in the crowd at Nightclub 101 was pregnant. And it was totally silent at that question. So,
That's it. That's an interest. Yeah. Okay.
It was really funny. Yeah, I really love that album. You should definitely check it out if you haven't already.
And she also has said something about not touring a lot in the future, but she didn't give pregnancy as the reason.
No, I think she just meant, the overall state of the industry and touring. It's really tough, especially for smaller artists right now. And yeah, so that was another reason why I really was like, okay, I got to make sure I see her while she comes through, because I love this, or just, so digging this album. So yeah.
I imagine, being pregnant might contribute a little bit to that feeling of like, wow, this no longer makes financial sense to me.
Also, it must just be exhausting. Like, I see that Waxahatchee is sitting down at her shows right now, and I'm like, that seems like a good move, honestly. Like, take a rest.
Definitely. And the audience is also sitting down at these shows, which is a change for a Waxahatchee show too. Right?
Yes. But, I think maybe that's a good thing. Although I'm someone who loves a general admission standing show. So part of me is like, okay, well, maybe that's why I didn't try so hard to go to either of these shows, because I'm not sure I want. But then I'm like, well, sitting actually sounds great. So
although I actually wasn't at the show. It's possible everybody stood. Last week, I was at Lily Allen. That was in a theater, and everyone did stand up for most of it.
So my understanding is that people, for the most part, actually did sit for these shows.
Okay.
That's the understanding that I got from people who attended. But I may not be totally correct, but I'm pretty sure that's the case.
I was also sitting on my couch and/or kitchen table chair when I watched some of Coachella Weekend 2 this past weekend.
Yeah.
That's maybe the closest I got to a show. It's kind of over the Coachella streaming. Weekend 1, I found time. I stayed up late. I put it on in the background. Weekend 2 is a little more like, I'm good.
It's hard to do it 2 weekends in a row. And with the Sonora stage not streaming on the second weekend, that cuts out a chunk of, you and I, of the artists that we would really be most interested in watching. Although
that's true.
Not all of them by any means.
Although what ended up happening is they added a dance tent to the streaming, and that ended up being the thing that I watched maybe the most of.
Interesting.
Yeah, which I just was, because it had names on there like Who Made Who and Roixop, who are artists that we like and are known for their original music too, but they were just doing DJ sets, and it was like literally that. So I was just kind of interested to see it, but also just Monday morning, the stream continued to like, you could rewind it, and it continues playing until Monday at noon, as I unfortunately found out on the previous episode when you guys made me realize that there was no more chance to rewind.
Yeah.
But
it's a limited time thing. You got to catch it while it's on.
Oh, and I'm right now my mind is like, how did we say that on a previous episode? That's because we recorded a special episode on Monday after Coachella Weekend 1.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's all a blur. Honestly, it's right now, everything is a blur.
Yeah. So this is now our regularly scheduled episode, which comes out on Fridays. The news of the stream being gone is way in the past. But I put the DJ sets on in the background, and it's like, it is kind of crazy to see, because Who Made Who, we've seen them with the band, Roixop, they do live songs, but they're just DJs on this stage at Coachella. They're just billed as DJs, and they're essentially just up there hitting buttons on this big stage, surrounded by people dancing under lasers and staring up at them like they're gods, which I guess that's what all concerts are kind of like, but it somehow stands out more, that kind of like, wow, these people are gods, when it's just a DJ who is possibly pretending to do things while a pre-recorded mix plays. So they're just like up there, like, and the whole place. Because at a nightclub in the dark, it's always kind of weirded me out about DJ live shows. Because if it's a nightclub, you're not, sometimes maybe, but you're not, the vibe is not staring at the DJ. You're dancing with your friends and anywhere in the dark. But when it's on a stage at a rock club, everybody is facing the DJ as if it was a concert. And
right. And I think, we've discussed how big of a deal EDM is at Coachella now, but also a big deal at Coachella, maybe not a big deal, but very prevalent at Coachella, is people watching things through their phone. Someone shared video of everyone at Sabrina Carpenter when she brought out Madonna, and just like everyone's watching through their phone and no one's dancing or anything. Everyone's just kind of like staring through their phone, mesmerized. So I do think that it's kind of not even just a Coachella thing. That's just kind of our culture right now.
As quote content creators, kind of guilty of it as well. But
totally guilty.
What was more shocking about the videos of Madonna coming out with Sabrina is, people recording it through their phone, but also people acting like they weren't excited.
Yeah,
Younger
that was
people.
Weird. That was a little weird. Like, I don't know, but people saying Weekend 2 got the better surprise guests. I don't know.
Not everyone may have known who they were watching.
That's true.
Yeah, well, they had Billie Eilish, but she didn't actually play music, right?
Yeah, I think did Justin Bieber just like hug her, or?
She came out on his stage with Bieber, but didn't actually perform. And she has been on record saying she was obsessed with Bieber as a younger child. So this was a huge moment for her, getting to be on stage with Bieber.
Yeah. And Karol G had some huge guests. She had Peso Pluma, J Balvin. She had Becky G again.
Okay.
And yeah, that's all I got off the top of my head. But I think there was a case to be made that Weekend 2 actually kind of won out this year. Oh, and Bieber brought out SZA.
Oh, right. That was a super exciting one.
Huge. And
David Lee Roth came back for a second week.
True.
Who brought out David Lee Roth again?
Somber. This time it was Somber.
Oh, he didn't come out. David Lee Roth was a special guest with somebody different?
Or maybe he came out during Teddy Swims. Okay.
Oh, right.
You know what? I got to check myself. It's all
okay.
It's
the
all
idea of David Lee Roth coming out with Somber is amazing, though. I love that. I love that idea.
I got to fact check that. You know what? I'm sorry. I totally misremembered. It was Teddy Swims who brought out David Lee Roth.
Again.
And Somber brought out Billy Idol this time.
You're never going to live down confusing Billy Idol and David Lee Roth.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to both of them. And also Olivia Rodrigo made a surprise appearance with Addison Rae. So those are some pretty major guests.
So, and this was days after, or was it before? Olivia Rodrigo was spotted with Cameron Winter of Geese walking out of a restaurant or something?
Days after, and also right after she released the first single off her new album.
Right. So being spotted with Cameron felt like a sign that maybe this was going to be a new rock record from Olivia, but showing up on stage with Addison feels like the opposite.
Yeah. Well, the new single, definitely not very rock oriented, but I do like it. So yeah, we'll see. I really love an Olivia ballad. Not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, I'm not complaining no matter what. Just trying to read the star signs here.
Well, Madonna could help you do that. She gave an extended astrology lesson when she came out with Sabrina Carpenter. Did you see that part?
I did not plan that segue.
I can never resist the opportunity to talk about astrology. Hit me up.
Okay. And so Somber, Billy Corgan, week 1. And wait, what did Somber do with Billy Idol week 2?
Eyes Without a Face.
Oh, I got to watch that. No, I don't.
Yeah.
I do love that song though, but I don't need to watch that. Yeah, I don't need to watch it.
I feel like I don't need to watch that. So
yeah.
Meanwhile, at the same location, you have Stagecoach, Coachella's country sibling, this weekend. They only have one weekend. Not going, alas. It'd probably be fun. Lots of cowboy boots, cowboy hats. And it's also streaming live, but not on YouTube. It's on Amazon Music and Twitch. So it's a little different format, but you could watch that this weekend if you
I'm looking at the flyer. There's not much that I would want to watch.
Yeah.
Do you know, do they stream like every set? Just kind of like Coachella does?
Sometimes it's a little tough to find the schedules for the Amazon Music live streams. I feel like they don't always reveal them until the last minute. So I'm not sure yet.
There have been years where I felt like there was enough artists playing at Stagecoach that was like, oh, I'd go to that day, or especially if they put that artist on the other day, that's like a whole day I'd want to be at. But it's not like there's not much here for me this year.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
Except Rebecca Black.
Oh,
I'm not even kidding.
Rebecca Black. Oh no, same. I'm totally serious.
And I'm also serious that she's playing, which is she? She is. She's doing something, DJing maybe.
Either way.
I saw her post that she'll be there. And Ludacris is there. So there's that. That's not the only festival this weekend. The reason you're not going to Stagecoach is because you'll be at Sick New World in Vegas.
I mean, that's kind of the place to be, right? That's the first of 2 Sick New Worlds that is happening this year. The second one is in Fort Worth. And yeah, that's a pretty major lineup.
And this year there is no When We Were Young, which was
right,
the emo / pop punk version of this festival, which came first, and then Sick New World, right, was announced the next as kind of like the new metal and goth metalcore version of When We Were Young. I think that was the order things happened. But yes,
I think so.
When We Were Young taking the year off.
Yeah, I think this is also Sick New World's return after taking a year off themselves.
Yeah, these festivals, we've talked about this too. These nostalgia festivals seem like the most likely festivals to need to take years off.
But then this year, you also have Boston Calling taking the year off. So it's not just the nostalgia festivals.
True.
Yeah.
I wish I was going to Sick New World. I don't know how I feel about these festivals actually, because like a million bands all in one day on so many stages in a parking lot in Vegas. But I do want to be there for System of a Down, Korn, Acid Bath, Terror, Failure.
I feel like it's one of those things that when you see the poster, you're like, oh my God, I got to be there. And then when you see the schedule, it's a little like, oh, so many tough decisions. But having said that, I'm sure it would be a blast.
Deaf Heaven, Melvin's, Health.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's so sick.
And for Failure, this is actually tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so for Failure, this is I don't know if they're playing tonight, but this will be, they're probably playing tonight. This will be also an album release festival for them, because some of the big news this week is a new Failure record out today, as we get into and notable releases on Brooklyn Vegan. But this is a great week for heavy and shoegazy 90s alt-rock, post-hardcore in general, partially because of Sick New World. I hadn't planned that part, but most notably, new Failure record out today, new Quicksand album just announced. Let's talk There's some other reasons, but let's talk about the Failure record for a second. If you don't know Failure, they did have kind of, I don't know if you'd call it a hit, but they definitely had one song that was on the radios, Most Familiar. It's definitely the most familiar Failure song to me when I hear it. In more recent years, Failure got a huge boost in recognition due to their 1996 album Fantastic Planet becoming a big influence on heavy shoegaze. But their new album Location Lost, which is out now, that is actually their 4th album since reuniting in 2014, which is more than the amount of albums they released during their initial run. And they're not really weighing in to that nostalgia. None of the newer albums have been like an attempt to recreate or capitalize on anything they did in the 90s, despite that sound continuing to be popular right now with newer buzzy bands. I'm going to quote Andrew, who gave us some words for notable releases. Location Lost is some of the most different sounding Failure music yet. It's a little shoegazy, but it's definitely not heavy. Instead, this is moody, atmospheric, slow-moving rock music that provides a dreary soundtrack for the near-death experience that some of the songwriting is about. Revolver actually has an interview with Failure that talks a little bit more about that near-death experience. I'm going to read from that really quick. A couple of years ago, a freak workout accident at home left the musician with a burst disc in his back. Though the surgery itself went fine, Ken Andrews explains that he came out of anesthesia experiencing extreme physical discomfort and was soon thrown into a hallucinatory waking nightmare. You know how sometimes when it's really hot, you look at something far away and you see those heat waves in the air? That's what it looked like, almost like an acid trip, he told Revolver. They did manage to stabilize me, and then the next day they were like, we think you're good to go home. I was feeling better, but then a nurse came in to change my IV and said, you should stay a couple more days. You almost died yesterday, man. So yeah, that scary experience informing this album. But also the band cites The Cure and Susie and the Banshees as influences on this one. And like Andrew says, there's a case to be made that Location Lost is actually Failure's most goth album yet. Even more reason they fit into Sick New World this week.
Yeah. And there's another really cool thing about Location Lost is it has guest vocals from Hayley Williams, a longtime fan of Failure. Paramore covered Stuck on You when they were just starting out. And Failure vocalist Ken mixed and played on Paramore's self-titled 2013 album. So yeah, now having Hayley team up with Failure on The Rising Skyline, so cool. I thought hearing them sing together is awesome.
Yeah, and Hayley, how many albums has Hayley appeared on this year?
Oh my gosh, good question. The number keeps ticking up.
But yeah, I think that's helping everybody.
Yeah, I love it.
It's like, what is Hayley going to do next? And wait, is Hayley, I can't believe I'm not remembering. Is Hayley on the new American Football album or the last American Football album?
She's not. She's on the last American Football album.
Oh, right. So American Football were ahead of the curve with the Hayley Williams features.
Exactly.
And
Yep, they were.
They've got plenty of special guests on this new one. But Mike Kinsella from American Football was one of the guests that just came out at Hayley Williams' show in Chicago the other night. So yeah, Hayley bringing out guests on every show. I don't know, Failure, I guess no members of Failure have showed up at any of the Hayley Williams shows yet, have they?
There's still time.
There's still time, yeah. And
we'll be watching.
Well, plus Hayley likes to always show up at other people's shows, so I guess there's a good chance.
Yeah, she does.
Failure, who has tour dates coming up, look out, especially in Nashville. And so, yeah, we've got this new Failure record, and also just yesterday, a new Quicksand album was announced. If you ask me to recommend to somebody who likes Failure, another band also from the 90s, but still current, Quicksand is going to be the first band that pops into my mind. Their debut album, Slip, is a 90s post-hardcore, is canon. But their last album in 2021 was one of my most played that year. And I've seen them a lot of times since then. Sometimes they're playing as a trio. Sometimes they add back in another guitarist. Their original guitarist is no longer part of the band. But and they had Stephen Brodsky from Cave-In playing guitar for a while. But I think this new album, there's no second guitarist mentioned. So
right.
This is
the new album is as a trio.
Quicksand as a trio. And it's called Bring On the Psychics. It's their third post-reunion record and their first LP in 5 years since that really good one in 2021 called Distant Populations. Yeah. Like
Failures, they now have more post-reunion albums than pre-reunion, right?
Something like that.
Because I think it's 3 post. This is their third post-reunion album, and they have 2 pre-reunion, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, not counting EPs, but yes. So this one's on Equal Vision. Their last one, I think, was on Epitaph, and this one is produced by and mixed by John Markson, who has been working with a lot of great hardcore bands the past few years, including Drug Church and Koyo. And so, yeah, that's really cool. Walter Schreifel says, for this album, I was going back to a lot of my earlier influences about Break Down the Walls or Start Today. Regardless of whether you're into hardcore or youth crew, they're really cool records because they're speaking to the time and providing possible paths to a better future with mosh parts. That's the energy that I wanted to bring to this. You can go see if he achieved it because 2 singles are out now. Also, Brooklyn Vegan has an exclusive pink splatter vinyl variant of Bring On the Psychics, limited to 500 copies and available for pre-order at shop.brooklynvegan.com right now. So go grab that. And like I was saying, this is a great time for this kind of 90s shoegazy heavy post-hardcore bands. Hum are also touring soon, which was like huge news. And they're playing the Shoegaze Fest Slide Away, which is happening in, I think, New York City, Chicago, and LA, with Nothing, who are kind of one of the more modern bands carrying that torch, and who also organized that fest, and a reunited Chapter House, plus a whole bunch of other bands. And then kind of also in related news, At the Drive-In spinoff Sparta also have a new album coming, also on Equal Vision. This was like 2 big Equal Vision announcements in a row, Sparta and then Quicksand. And also, we have an exclusive vinyl variant of that Sparta record in the Brooklyn Vegan shop. So you can go pick that up along with Quick Shop. You can go Quick Shop that Quicksand, Sparta, Brooklyn Vegan shop, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Should we talk about more new releases this week?
Let's do it.
Are you excited about any new albums this week?
I am. There's 2 albums I'm pretty excited for this week. The first is from Chicago band Friko. This is their 2nd album. It's called Something Worth Waiting For. And they make really urgent, anthemic indie rock that, like, it scratches a nostalgic itch for me, but it also feels very current. I like them a lot, and I haven't gotten to see them live yet, unfortunately. They were just in New York City for Rough Trade's mini record store day festival.
The Indie Plaza
and I missed
thing.
that.
Same.
Yeah, I was bummed to miss that, but they are going to be back when they are on tour this fall. So hopefully I will see them then, because I missed them last album cycle, and I was bummed about that.
Oh, I did catch them last time, because I really liked that last album. Yeah, I was.
Yeah, I love them. I think they're just like a really good band. And another album I'm excited for is another 2nd album, this one from Miss Grit. It's called Under My Umbrella, and they make really cool art rock that a little reminiscent of St. Vincent, but also like very much their own thing too. And that's out on Mute. What about you, Dave?
Well, I have a grouping here because it's actually a really exciting week for heavy and screamy music too. I'm going to start with Screamo veterans, The Saddest Landscape, who are back with their first album in 10 years, which features guest spots from 3 artists they've influenced, including Julien Baker. Yes, that would be the Julien Baker, the singer-songwriter most famous now for being in Boy Genius.
But who is also a big fan of screamy music.
Yes, and like coming up before she was, go check out her older bands and interests. And then Evan Weiss of Into It Over It, and Touche Amore's Jeremy Bolm, who has also had Julien Baker on some songs, whose own music, Touche Amore, is especially complimentary to what Saddest Landscape does. And I'm sure Jeremy would have bought this album even if he wasn't on it. He probably bought that Failure record too. He's such a big vinyl collector. He probably bought like every variant of that new Failure record and every variant of the new Saddest Landscape album. Well, he definitely bought the new variants of the Saddest Landscape because he's on it too. But no, I
haven't heard the whole thing yet, but what I have heard of the Saddest Landscape is so awesome.
Yeah, and sometimes like the Julien track.
The Julien Baker track is so sick.
Yeah, I think it's worth pointing out. Sometimes it's like, all right, no offense, American football, but it's like Brendan Yates is on it, but it's, can you tell? It's like that kind of background vocally thing. But Julien Baker is in the forefront of that track on the Saddest Landscape, much like Hayley Williams is in the forefront of that Failure track.
Exactly.
All right. So you've got Failure, you've got Saddest Landscape. Also this week, the already impossible to define Portrayal of Guilt from Austin, who get even harder to find on this new album, which is called Beginning of the End. They embrace industrial, new metal, trip hop, hip hop, black and death metal, screamo, and hardcore, all on this new album. So that's another exciting one for me. That band always mixes it up. I love them. Also, the bittersweet final album from At the Gates with vocalist Thomas Lindberg on there. He passed away of cancer this past September, and he already knew he was sick when he recorded this album. Super sad, huge loss for the metal community, but grateful to have this final At the Gates album. And the new Terror record is here. Consistently great hardcore lifers. This one's out on Flat Spot. We also had an exclusive of that, sold out fast. And we also have an exclusive of that At the Gates record. We also have an exclusive of that Saddest Landscape record. We're really nailing it with getting exclusive vinyl from all these great records in our Brooklyn Vegan shop. Sorry for that constant hawking or whatever you want to call it. But we love these records and we love to be able to sell them. And for more on all of those and new records from Bad Operation, Fatboy Sharif, Flory, and Foo Fighters, check out notable releases this week over on BrooklynVegan.com. And then for reviews of new albums by The Reds, Pinks and Purples, White Fence, Shia Margaret, Doug Gillard of Guided by Voices, King Gizzard's drummer, Calves, and more, go make sure to read Bill's Indie Basement column on Brooklyn Vegan today as well. All right, Amanda, should we get into the news?
Let's do it. I think this week was really extra, like a very loaded news week. And part of the reason is because after Coachella, all the announcements started to come out, all the announcements that were being held.
It's true. It's true. All right, here we go. Fresh off playing Coachella, David Byrne has announced some big shows, including a hometown show at Forest Hill Stadium. Fresh off playing Coachella, Geese have also announced some big shows, including a hometown show at Forest Hill Stadium. Some great shows coming to Forest Hill. I
think that's a good lineup. I mean, a good venue for Geese. I'm really happy that is their next New York City show.
It definitely makes sense. They need a big one, but it's actually not their next New York City show. Their next New York City show that has been announced is Governor's Ball. So this we should talk about this for a second. Yeah. There's been a lot of discourse this week around radius clauses, which, if you don't know, means that bands have to sign. There's radius clauses in bands' contracts when they go onto a show that says, if you agree to play this specific show, you won't play any other shows in the area during a certain time frame. Festivals are especially famous for having radius clauses because it sucks for certain cities, especially like if a city that doesn't get a lot of shows to begin with, it can be during, like, I don't know, let's say Chicago. It might be that nobody tours through Chicago in the summer because all the bands had radius clauses that were playing Pitchfork, Lollapalooza, or they're touring through, but those are the only shows they could play. Anyway, there's not always that. It's changed over time. The festivals make up for it a little by doing the, second plays. They announce the after shows or whatever. Bands who play the festivals end up playing some venues. But anyway, a smaller band who I won't name, but whose new album we like. That's one clue. That's not a very good clue, but they tweeted that local opening bands should not announce other shows when they're already announced as an opener on a touring band's show in their hometown. And this sparked a lot of backlash against this band. They've deleted the tweet because the tweet sounded like they were telling opening bands they shouldn't be allowed to make money just because of like their show. It sounded very self-interested. It sounded like they were maybe subtweeting a band who was opening for them on their current tour. And this is not a huge band. This is a band playing 200 cap venues or something, maybe even smaller.
But, there's something to be said. I can't help but feel that, like, if you're a small band and you're playing an additional show in the same city, like 2 weeks before your opening slot, that means that, the people who might have come to see you on that opening slot, they saw you at the other show. Now maybe they won't go to that other show. And I don't know. It's
tough. And there's a big, like, it depends, I think, here. And it depends. It's not, every situation is not going to be the same. But I think it's generally agreed upon that it would suck for a local band to not be able to make money in their town, especially if they're getting like $100 to open some touring band's show. Yeah. But then there's also, opening bands get booked on touring band show because to bring people, it's kind of a big part of the point. And so, you could go back all day. Anyway, clearly Governor's Ball is not worried about this because Geese on Governor's Ball in June, and we're allowed to announce this massive show coming much later in the fall. So there's, on the old way of doing it, you often get tour posters. Geese may have announced this tour conspicuously without a New York City show.
Exactly.
And then the
New York City show would have been announced like the day after their Governor's Ball set.
Exactly. So that's how kind of one way you see it. But nope. No radius clause here. Or I don't know who's promoting. Governor's Ball is owned by Live Nation is maybe Geese's Forest Hill show. It would be less surprising if Geese's Governor's Forest Hill show was also Live Nation, because then the same promoter, they're like, whatever, our Governor's Ball is almost sold out anyway. And
I believe that their Forest Hill show is also being promoted by Live Nation.
Yeah, so that would make sense. You're more likely to get out of a ratings clause if it's the same promoter. All right. Fresh off making a surprise appearances in her horse mask at Coachella with both Pink Pantheress and Wet Leg, Horsegiirl, the one with two eyes, not the Chicago indie rock band, has announced her debut album.
Announced right in time for Earth Day, which was like keeping in theme.
Oh, why is that?
That's just kind of her thing. She's a horse. She's part horse.
She's a horse.
Yeah, that's the thing. So very interesting stuff.
Fresh off her surprise Coachella appearance with Sabrina Carpenter that we just talked about during the fest's second weekend, Madonna has released the first single from her upcoming Confessions 2 album. Modest Mouse put out a new song, their first in like 5 years, and have announced a whole new album to go along with it and a ton more tour dates. I mean, Modest Mouse are always on the road. It's another new tour, including, Pier 17 here in New York City?
Yeah, Rooftop at Pier 17. With,
Rooftop.
Yeah.
Another kind of exciting tour announcement. Ambient folk singer Grouper has announced a tour, which feels like rare and super special, including Town Hall here in our hometown.
And I think that Town Hall show is her first New York City show since 2022.
Okay.
She has been on the road since then, but she hasn't been to New York City. And in general, she doesn't tour like that much. So it does feel very special. I agree.
I think that's one people will stay seated for.
Yes. And in fact, she may be seated on the floor for, as she was when I last saw her, which was a number of years ago. But I think that is how she often performs.
I've never seen Grouper, actually.
You should rectify that. You should go to that Town Hall show.
I definitely should. Beck has announced a fall tour named after his new single, the Ride Lonesome Tour, including shows all over North America with some 2-night runs in major cities. Like Jack White's upcoming tour, he's playing venues like Brooklyn Paramount, not huge venues. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's like, do we have a new album coming from him? Maybe that's going to be announced soon. Yeah, seems likely.
Jeff Rosenstock is celebrating a decade of his fantastic second solo album, 2016's Worry, with a special New York City show. It happens also on the Rooftop at Pier 17 on September 19th, and he's promising a, quote, ultra long gig with the album played in full and, quote, then playing another 2+ hours, all in caps. That's just it. He just announced one show.
He does have some other shows, but this is the last show of his current tour. I mean, he also has like a residency in Chicago. You know how he did that residency in New York City where he added another show after each one sold out? Well, he has one of those in Chicago. So there's a bunch of shows. So yeah, he's going to be pretty busy on the tour, on the road, as per usual.
And I wouldn't be surprised if he announces more tour dates around that New York show later.
Agreed.
So it's not till September.
Show sounds like a fun time.
Yeah, did he mention openers? It's always fun to see who Jeff Rosenstock is touring with.
It is, I agree. He did not mention openers yet, but I will definitely be curious, unless they do like the no opener route because he's playing such a long set. I suppose that's
true. An evening with Jeff Rosenstock?
Yeah.
Fancy.
Like, actually, the David Byrne show we mentioned earlier is an evening with David Byrne with no opener.
Okay. So that would please certain pop stans who on Twitter this week have been argued. I think some pop stan, tweeted that there should not be openers at shows, which caused a lot of predictably mad people saying, wow, you don't care about other artists. And then people started giving examples of smaller artists that they discovered because they opened shows, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just the kind of wild opinion I might expect to find on Twitter these days.
I think here at BrooklynVegan, we generally have the opposite feeling.
Yes.
And we're very much like get there at doors for every opener type people. Yeah. And unless it feels like the booking of the openers was kind of fraudulent in some cases, but usually when we see a solid, 3-4 band bill that is very curated to our tastes and feels genuine, that's what we love.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing. I was actually really bummed to miss the opener for La La Lala because I forgot my camera battery at home. I literally made it to the subway and then had to walk back to my apartment and grab a battery. So don't do that.
This will be the second week in a row where I then clarify that if you don't know, Amanda is also a professional music photographer whose photos also regularly appear on BrooklynVegan for many years. So yes, Amanda was seeing that show, but also shooting that show.
Yes.
Iron Maiden say they will not attend their Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
You know what? I love that. Good for them. Good for them. They're good. They're going to play their shows instead.
Is that what? It's scheduled during their tour?
Yeah, it's scheduled during their tour. They're going to go see their fans instead. And I love that.
And get a lot of money in the process.
Yeah,
and
true.
They still get to be in either way.
Yeah, but I still love that.
We mentioned earlier that Mike Kinsella came out as Hayley Williams' guest. What we didn't mention is that the next night in Chicago, she brought out Rachel Brown of Water From Your Eyes, who are the band opening the tour. That's cool that Rachel got to also perform with Hayley, though.
That is very cool. And I didn't point out earlier, but Hayley and American football are both playing Kilby. Oh my gosh, why am I
Kilby Block Party in
yes,
Utah.
Thank you. Yes, they're both playing that festival. So I'm like, ooh, what potential, on-stage collaborations do we have?
And
so
will the host of Jeopardy be in the audience? Okay, I've stumped you. Yeah. You have not seen the viral clip this week of what's the Jeopardy host guy now? Name?
Is it Ken Jennings now?
Ken Jennings.
I'm like an old school Jeopardy fan from, back in the day. I used to sing my ABCs to the Jeopardy theme song when I was a kid. But these days, I'm just not up to date on it.
Well, unlike our friend Joey Reck, I do not watch Jeopardy 5 nights a week. And so I'm also not fully up on it. But I know that, the new host he had been originally a big winner on Jeopardy, right? And like a fan favorite guy. Well, he's also, I think there's this recurring theme that he's also a big music fan. And there's a viral clip. But when I say viral clip, I mean, this is on Jeopardy is like really good at social media. This is a clip that's on Jeopardy's official Instagram account of him talking about not only his love for REM lately and seeing the tribute band, what's their names, recently that really got him back
Michael Shannon and Jason Narabuchi.
He's talking about enjoying that show, but he also talks about loving to go to Kilby Block Party. And I think one of the contestants may have said that she saw him in the audience at Kilby Block Party. Yeah. I would love to make that fest. And that fest is by the same people who do Best Friends Forever in Las Vegas, which is another nostalgia fest not happening this year.
Yeah, the Kilby lineup is always so stacked. And yeah, that would definitely be a fun one to make.
You know what else is a festival?
What else?
Bon Iver's Eau Claire Festival in his hometown of Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Yeah, and actually coming back for the first time in 8 years.
Has it really been that long?
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I can't believe it's been that long.
Well, when that lineup was announced, there was a mysterious, but not that mysterious name on there, Bon Dylan. And many theorized that that could be Bon Iver himself, aka Justin Vernon, covering Bob Dylan songs. It has been revealed that that is exactly what it will be. Justin will be performing along with a whole bunch of other musician friends. He says he will perform as Bob Dylan circa 1994, quote, doing songs from every era.
That sounds really cool. And, the real Bob Dylan also announced a bunch more tour dates this week. He is just like still a road warrior.
Big week for Dylan. Oh, yeah. And Bob Dylan also playing Forest Hill Stadium.
Right. Another one.
Speaking of legendary crooners, we recently got a new Tom Waits song, which was also a new Massive Attack song. And now fellow trip-hop legend Tricky has announced a new album with a new song out now, too. I love Tricky. Big Tricky fan. Last week we mentioned they were teasing something, and now Scottish electronic duo Boards of Canada, staples in every music snob's record collection, have announced their first album in 13 years. It's called Inferno, and it's out May 19th via Warp. I talked on here about seeing the documentary about Joe Keithley of Canadian punk legends DOA becoming a politician. That documentary is now available to stream on demand. Head over to Veeps to watch that one, VOD, along with also on Veeps, Salad Days, which is the Washington, D.C. hardcore punk documentary, and the Cream magazine documentary, both made by the same director, both also up streaming on Veeps. Denver-based hardcore and alt-rock fusionists and drug church tour openers Public Opinion have announced a new EP. No, LP, actually.
Yeah, their second album.
And on that LP, they have a guest spot by Vinnie Coruna of The Movie Life. And their last album had a guest spot by Pat Kinlan of Drug Church. That album is coming out in August on Side 1 Dummy. And we also have an exclusive vinyl variant of that one, limited to just 100 copies. It's on sale now at shop.brooklynvegan.com, where you'll also find our exclusive variants of Saddest Landscape and Quicksand and Sparta and that new Failure record on color vinyl, because we had an exclusive of that Failure too, but it's sold out. You'll also get Angine de Poitrine records on vinyl. Have you picked those up yet? They're on pre-order now at shop.brooklynvegan.com. Amanda, thank you as always. I think Andrew, Bill, and I are now about to talk more about 1996 records, previously recorded material, but debuting here for the first time.
So there is no Green Day record in 1996, but there is a Weezer record, Pinkerton. Oh, I said I'd only pick 2 emo records, but Pinkerton is arguably an emo record. Influenced a lot of emo bands, maybe not emo by itself. It is it's hard to know what's left to say about Pinkerton.
Is it better or worse than Blue Album? That's the question, right?
Yeah, I pick Pinkerton for sure, but both are 10s for totally different reasons. Blue Album is, this is a good way to start. Hey, if you'll hear my answer, but also go watch on Brooklyn Vegan's YouTube a bunch of emo and punk bands giving their answers to this question. Blue Album is a perfect pop album. It's especially, like I said, I'm a Brian Wilson obsessive. I think they brought the spirit of Brian Wilson to 90s alternative rock. Well, to popular 90s alternative rock more than anybody. I mean, obviously Bill's sitting there being like high llamas, but I mean, in the context of like sort of grunge or punk derived 90s alternative radio rock, I've actually, total tangent here, I've been listening to the Beach Boys' new We Gotta Groove box set and the solo piano demos that Brian Wilson recorded in 1976. There are a few where I'm just like, this kind of sounds like something Rivers Cuomo would do. And, he wouldn't have had those exact recordings, I assume, unless maybe he had a bootleg. But I think these were in the vault for a while. So it's just kind of interesting. I keep hearing these songs, Brian Wilson, late 70s, at home and with the piano. And I keep being like, definitely hearing the Rivers Cuomo, like reverse influence here. In any case, Blue Album is perfect. Pop songs, brilliant pop songwriting. The distortion pedal choice is legendary. We've heard it copied by 100,000 bands. The guitar solos are legendary. When you do a guitar solo and the melody is the vocal melody, you're either doing Smells Like Teen Spirit or Weezer's Blue Album, usually. And more often than not, I think you're doing Weezer's Blue Album when I tend to hear these things. Can't say enough about how good the songwriting on Blue Album is. And it was Weezer's first record. It instantly made them famous. They, for kind of an indie band, didn't really have much of an indie era. They kind of just were straight to a major label, straight to popular. And then after becoming pretty famous, Rivers gets the idea to make this much more tortured, weird, dark record. He actually was going to make this rock opera called Songs from the Black Hole, one of the most famous lost albums. I still hope that we get like a semi-compiled version one day, the way we've gotten like Beach Boys Smile. But Rivers abandons Songs from the Black Hole, just like Brian Wilson abandoned Smile. And just like the Beach Boys released Smiley Smile, Weezer released Pinkerton, which is kind of this scaled back, lo-fi album that some of the songs were written for that rock opera, but the whole thing is just sort of like, he went from these perfect pop melodies to letting himself sing off key if the energy called for it. And, wrestling, like he went from like, he's got this album that makes him famous. And then on the first track of his next record, Tired of Sex, it's just like kind of just looking at fame and, not like and getting exhausted by what a lot of people would have thought that you'd be striving for, these type very 90s mentality, very Kurt Cobain. But it's just this like, and there's like also, as many people have said, these sort of problematic lyrical elements of Pinkerton that like I'm certainly not going to defend, but there's also just so much charm to it. And it really like, the reason I say it, like it inspired so many emo bands is it just the way that he just let himself not hold back at all on emotion. When the emo bands of the 2000s were looking to the 90s, they were looking at like bands like Braid and Cap and Jazz, but they were also all looking at Pinkerton and just seeing this raw, unfiltered emotion and just seeing how they could kind of take that and make it their own. And also, I mean, it's influential on emo and of course influential on indie rock. I mean, tons of indie band. It's harder to think of an indie band that wouldn't cite Blue Album or Pinkerton as an influence. But yeah, I love this record. It, this went over Blue Album for me by just a hair. The guitar parts are just explosive. Like again, the emotion, you just can't deny it. It's just so weird in the best way, just weird lyrics and weird melodies. And like, I mean, like that El Scorcho is a song that Weezer can play and get massive sing-alongs to, and just how odd it sounds. Yeah. Again, it's hard for me to talk about this record because I have 100,000 things to say about it, but I also feel like they've all been said better. But yeah. What about you, Bill?
Well, I think you might know that I have this opinion already, but I actually don't like the Blue Album all that much, mainly due to Rick Ocasek's production, which something about it just, I couldn't get into the songs because of it. Like, I think Rick Ocasek has produced records which are good despite his production, which I think is almost uniformly bad, whether it's 80s or 90s or even into the 2000s. Like I like Lloyd Cole and the Commotions, Rattlesnakes, but I think it does not sound that good, but the songs are so good that it sort of transcends it. But the Blue Album, I mean, I like Buddy Holly fine, but I just could never, I don't know, it just didn't work in my ears. And then I sort of gave up on Weezer, but then I think I was at the Virgin Megastore in Union Square where I spent a lot of time, and they had an actual DJ who would like play music and come on and talk in between like songs, and he would ask trivia questions, and if you got it right and you were the first person to go up to the booth, you'd get a coupon for like 40% off 2 CDs. And so almost every time I went in there, like I won a coupon from answering a trivia question. And I remember like, I keep hearing this record Pinkerton's actually pretty good. So I bought it and I liked it so much. Like this is my favorite Weezer record. You did just say you didn't
like the Blue Album, so no, but sorry Weezer, no.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Hey, maybe he's a maladroit guy. We don't know.
I mean, I like the Green record, whatever that one's called.
Green Album, yeah. Green Album's good.
But yeah, I don't know. This Pinkerton just hit me in a way that the first record didn't. I haven't listened to it in a while, and I did not revisit it before talking about this today. But you know, I've heard it 60 or 70 times over the last 25 years.
I probably got you beat.
I'm sure.
And then, you know, the fun story about this album is it was so hated. I believe Rolling Stone called it the worst album of 1996. It was totally a commercial failure. I mean, I said El Scorcho is like a big sing-along, but like, I mean, it had no hits. Blue Album had multiple hits. Pinkerton had no hits. And Rivers Cuomo took it hard. The band went on hiatus. He was really miserable. You know, he felt like people didn't understand what he was trying to do. And that's why when they came back with Green Album and then without Matt Sharp, who really, it's just not the same.
Mm-hmm.
But plenty of good Weezer songs since, you know, Green Album was in every way, including the cover art, like it was a return to Blue Album on purpose because he was like, that worked, this didn't. And I do like Green Album a lot, but it's like, I think because the album that I think is Weezer's best album is something that they tried so hard to get away from for a long time, you know, it stings a little bit when you listen to some of the, like I say newer, but now Green Album is 25 years old or something. But, you know, when you listen to the post Pinkerton stuff, it just sort of like has this gray cloud over it of like, it won't do the thing that a lot of Weezer fans wish they would do. It will only do the thing that they succeeded with the first time.
It's another record sort of like the Beastie Boys' Paul's Boutique in that it flopped on initial release, but within 3 or 4 years, the opinion sort of completely changed by other people discovering it.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I always go back to those early 2000s emo bands. To me, that's a big part of the narrative. I'm sure to you, it's not that, but like, it was, you know, this record, I look at Jawbreaker's Dear You the same way, because that was super hated by the punks who were really mad that Jawbreaker signed to a major and all that stuff. But like both Dear You and Pinkerton were these records that were just hated at the time, and then they influenced like the next generation of bands, and that generation happened to be my introduction to most underground music. So kind of like getting all at once this narrative of like, this record was hated, but actually we all loved it. And then we all formed these bands and we're doing like Pinkerton and Dear You stuff. You know, it's always held a big place in my heart for that reason. I think, you know, to call a band's record their Pinkerton, you instantly know what you're saying there.
All right. My next pick fits pretty well actually with Pinkerton, and that's Neutral Milk Hotel's debut album On Avery Island. And we were joking about playing drinking games with Indie Basement before. You can definitely play drinking games with this by any time I mention other music. But this is the most, next to Belle and Sebastian probably, this is the most highly associated record with other music for me on this list, because I first heard of this band. I worked in NoHo and I lived in the East Village. So I walked by other music on the way home every day. Even if I didn't buy anything, I would spend 45 minutes in there. And as I walked by, they were having an in-store, which is this other music's tiny. And I walk in and I'm like, who's playing? And they're like, Neutral Milk Hotel. And I'm like, okay. And he was just starting to set up. And I don't know how many people actually knew the record. It might have been like the day of the release or something. But within 1 minute of his first song, the whole place was just pin drop quiet. And I will never forget seeing him there, like not knowing who this person was and being completely blown away by just a guy, his guitar, and his very emotive voice. I think every person that was there bought a copy of the record that day. And I remember taking it into work the next day and playing it for the people that I worked with in my small office on Broadway and Bleecker. And we all liked it. And then I think he came back the next year and played Knitting Factory. And it was one of those instant sellouts and none of us got to go. But I was very glad that I just happened into that. And for that reason, I think I'm more of a fan of this record than the second record, which is almost everybody's favorite Neutral Milk Hotel album. But I think this one's undeniable, even if you think In the Airplane Over the Sea is better. Song Against Sex and Garden Head, Leave Me Alone, those are all just classics. And Jeff Mangum's, if not words, just his powerful, full-throated delivery just goes straight to your heart. And they had that Elephant Six sort of lo-fi wall of sound thing going. And I don't know, it's one of these like perfect records that's messy around the edges.
Like Pinkerton.
Exactly.
I like In the Airplane Over the Sea more. I'm one of the people you're describing. I also definitely listened to In the Airplane Over the Sea and Pinkerton, like in a lot of the same listening sessions. Those are similar in my mental music fan bank, I guess. I think In the Airplane Over the Sea is such an amazing album that I just don't listen on Avery Island that much. Just because every time I think about putting on Neutral Milk Hotel, I'm just picking one of the best albums of all time, which they've written. But when I do put on Avery Island, I am also very impressed. It is amazing. I honestly think, like, I'm jealous that you had your experience for multiple reasons. One, because that's amazing. Two, because I would love to see Jeff Mangum in that environment. And three, because I think if I would have heard this album first, I'd probably be able to like it more. But it is awesome. And I also think that, I'm curious if you agree with this. I feel like because In the Airplane Over the Sea is very hard to replicate, but there are a lot of, DIY indie rock bands citing Neutral Milk Hotel. And I actually would say they tend to more sound like On Avery Island. Maybe it's a little bit easier to, that sounds backhanded, but it's like, it's On Avery Island is more of a sort of, that you can kind of grasp it a little bit. It's a little more tangible. And Airplane Over the Sea is kind of, out of this world, I think. Right.
I think it's one of those records that inspires people because they're like, oh, I could do this. Maybe you can't write those songs, but the sounds sort of seem achievable.
Yeah. Also, it's interesting to hear your experience with his voice too, because my first reaction to his voice was, this guy can't sing. And now, of course, I'm like, I love his voice. It's amazing. I mean, I think we've had some conversations on this show just about like Cameron Winter being that type of singer too. And Jeff Mangum comes up as a comparison. I think Amanda brought Jeff Mangum up as a comparison for Cameron Winter, just on the level of like not knowing if you like the voice at first and then realizing you love it. But when I first heard I'm not going to imitate it, but like the I love you, Jesus Christ line, and he just holds out Christ and he's like all over the place key wise. And I'm just like, this, I don't know if he can sing. But now I'm like, oh, that's like the best thing ever. And I want more of that in my life. So
I would say that the Jesus stuff on that record is one of my sticking points with holding the first record more than the second. I don't love the overt religious elements.
I was just
what about the Anne Frank stuff?
That's what it's about, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a concept album somehow based on the Holocaust in a way that somehow was
you need to listen to the new Bandsplain episode, which is, I think, like 4 hours. They go deep into this. I haven't listened to it yet. I'm just...
Dave, I was going to say that you're like a huge Neutral Milk Hotel fan, and that's part of the reason why I picked this. I figured that we all had interesting, different entry points into this.
So
Dave,
my
what was
entry
yours?
point, like a lot of indie bands that we have mentioned in this series, was definitely that 2003, 2004 pre and beginning BrooklynVegan era. They were another band who I was not aware of at all during their initial existence. So for some context, we're talking about this 1996 album, but we're also referencing the more popular 1998 album. Is that right? And Neutral Milk Hotel broke up soon after releasing the 1998 album. And Jeff Mangum became one of the most famous recluses in indie rock, and their legend grew. I don't know exactly how big the venues they were playing in 1998, but they were definitely playing way bigger venues when, much to everybody's amazement, Neutral Milk Hotel came back and reunited in 2013. I think it was a long process for Jeff. Actually, I think Jeff started playing solo shows first. At the time, I mean, I would say in between, I'll just say, let's say 2003 to 2013. Those are the years I remember. That's where I became introduced to the legend of Jeff Mangum. And I would look back and be like, wow, they played other music. Oh, and they played like Brownies on Avenue A so many times. venue, which is now called Lucinda's, still exists. I had FOMO, like just thinking about the fact that, because it was so like legendary and reclusive, and this thing, you're almost like, maybe they never played any shows, but then you're like, wait, if I had known about this just that many years earlier, like people that followed music in the way that I follow it now were at those shows, including Bill. I did not get to experience them in the 90s, but if I can brag for 1 second, I will say, so Bada Bing Records was super close with Jeff Mangum throughout his reclusive years, and was kind of, I think, instrumental behind the scenes in getting Jeff to play again. And here's an interesting thing. I used to see Jeff on the street sometimes in Park Slope. He lived near me, apparently. So people thought he maybe was probably in the woods or something. And then I'd just be walking down the street and see this guy in like this crazy sweater and this hat. He has a very consistent, unique style, which he wore. You could look at the pictures of when after they did reunite. He also would wear that like same style just in the middle of the summer, walking down the street when he's supposed to be nowhere to be found. Anyway, so those were always like seeing a ghost. But then I also happened to be invited to a private show, which I think was officially his first performance before the announced reunion. And it was like hush hush. Yeah. And it was
I remember
death
this
sentence if you talk about it kind of thing. And it was just to see if Jeff could do it. And I don't even remember where it was, but I remember sitting on the floor for it. And we were in this kind of like intimate space and got to see Jeff perform there. And that was definitely probably up there in one of the most special shows of my life. I went on to see Neutral Milk Hotel and Jeff solo many times after that, because after they reunited, it really went full force, cashing in. They didn't release new music, right? I don't think, but Jeff, they played a lot. It would be like 6 nights at BAM, Brooklyn Academy of Music, or like they did those All Tomorrow's Parties, ATP shows in like Asbury Park. And I would definitely go to a lot of nights, a lot of, whether it was Jeff solo or Neutral Milk Hotel. So I got a chance. And now it's crazy. That's even feels like the distant past at this point. Yeah.
It was a long time ago, and they haven't played since that run. I saw them at the Capitol Theater in Portchester one time, not multiple times, like you, jealous again, but it was awesome. And yeah, to your point though, Dave, I feel like that's actually a big part of their narrative. Like, it is interesting that Bill is living proof that you could have actually just seen them in real time, because like they do feel like a band whose legend grew after, and also they, were such a core influence on so much of the indie rock that got bigger in the 2000s. Like, I mean, the Decemberists, obviously, but also like Bright Eyes, Death Cab, any like sensitive guy with the acoustic guitar in indie, pretty much. And it just felt like, to me, like when like in the 2000s, which again was sort of a finding all this stuff moment for me, everyone I knew had all the current records that would have been released at whatever, in the last year or so, and in the Airplane Over the Sea. And it didn't feel like this older thing. It kind of felt current, because it was like everyone I knew was kind of just finding it at the same time, alongside all these records from like 4, 5, 6 years later that it inspired. So it was like the opposite almost of what we said earlier about Texas Is the Reason, where I'm like, I'm finding this thing because I knew they influenced all these bands I love, but it was like this instant piece of history. Somehow within the Airplane Over the Sea, it didn't feel like historical in the way that like Texas Is the Reason did. It just sort of felt like I would feel like, did this really come out in 1998, or is it like some hoax and it's really from 2002? Like it just felt like it was part of the aughts era indie zeitgeist, despite predating it.
It was also one of those records that Pitchfork had given a 10. So in the early 2000s, when you're trying to figure out like these, it felt like the most important record to Pitchfork or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was, I would say it is probably top 5 most important record to like,
and to be clear,
indie rock.
That's the one that we actually weren't talking about in this.
Right. The one that we weren't talking about, the one that's not from 1996.
I had a feeling the conversation would go this way. So,
I mean, it's sometimes the best way to talk about something is in comparison to what it's not.
I think that their New York show for In an Airplane Over a Sea was also a knitting factory, which is kind of crazy because that probably held 350 people or something like that. And I think they broke up like maybe a month or something after that show. That was definitely one of those where people who couldn't get a ticket were like standing in the room outside, which had a bar and you could just go into, and were just happy to listen, nearby.
Thanks for tuning in. Dave and I will be back every Friday morning with new episodes of BV Weekly. And in between the episodes, you can always get much more from us at BrooklynVegan.com, on all of our social media, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can pick up records from us at shop.brooklynvegan.com. And if you like what you hear, tell your friends about us, subscribe to the show, give us a good rating. All that little stuff goes a really long way. It really helps us a lot, and we really appreciate it. So until then, thank you again, and see you next time.